Hi, this is Rick Harsh. This is my booktube. And the last one I did was on history books. And I forgot one major thing that I wanted to say. And I've been thinking about it too much since then. And I decided, well, it is worth pointing out. So why not do a booktube? Also, I forgot to mention my sponsor. And I'll write it down here so you don't forget it. It's Saber Guitars. Saber Guitars. Right there. Saber Guitars. It's just around the corner, a few blocks down. Over by the football stadium, if you, or My Pew Bar, if you know the area. The mechanic, the legendary mechanic, Samuel Gustincic, has retired. And, you know, he'll still do the occasional favor for a longtime customer. Yeah, so that's no longer a landmark, but it never really was anyway. I mean, you know, Samo's a free spirit, meaning he's often not even there in spirit. But he's really good, and he wasn't in it for the money entirely. I suppose he used some of it for food and, I don't know, probably not even rent. I think he still lives with his mom. But that's not to imply that he's not a yebach, which is kind of a... Technically, it means fucker, but it's more like gigolo. You know, and he still goes down to the beach, and he wears his really tight spandex shorts. It's very, I don't know, it's something very uncomfortable about when he, you know, I'm sitting at a bar outside, and he comes by on his bike, and, you know, hey, Samo, and he stops, and, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I feel like I would if I was sitting right outside the high school shower or something, you know. I feel like a perverted gym coach, you know, when he walks up to me, you know, because, I mean, you know, you're sitting back and, well, anyway, that's Samo Gustincic, but I'm talking about Saber, who, Saber Guitars. A luthier, whatever you call it, wherever you are. Anyway, the thing that I left out of my history list, because I wasn't doing a list, I wanted to make one key point, and I'm pretty sure that it would bore me if I went over it to make sure I didn't make this point, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. And that's that, you know, some of the best history books ever written are of no interest to people because they're not interested in a particular period of history. For instance, I think that if you're a good, honest thinker and reader, and you're, let's say, 65 years old, you probably have a pretty good idea about what happened in the Vietnam War. I mean, both of them actually, but primarily the one that the U.S. stepped into. You know, you don't really have to read the best possible book on the Vietnam War. And oh shit, I was going to look up a couple of books, but anyway, the Vietnam War is a good example. Because, first of all, if I wanted to recommend books about the Vietnam War, I would start with William Appleman Williams's The Tragedy of American Diplomacy, which is kind of like the granddaddy of the new historian movement, the new left historian movement, maybe some would call it. That I think he was at the University of Wisconsin. And A lot of his students went on to write great books from the New Left perspective. Anti-imperial, I guess, would be one way viewing what the U.S. does, the understanding the type of imperium it is, and understanding their foreign policy from that perspective. And that pretty much gives you the template for what happens even today. Although Naomi Klein has expanded in shock doctrine on the economic changes, the acceleration of economic theft brought about by the Chicago School of Economics doctrines. Anyway, so William Appleman Williams, The Tragedy of American Diplomacy. I don't have it here, but even before, that would be one. If you're going to study the era, but I would say you should also study the French in Vietnam. And if you're going to study the French in Vietnam, there's Bernard Fall, and there's one other guy. Bernard Fall, I think, wrote about he wrote two really good books, and there was another. I think they were both journalists, the two that I'm thinking of. The nice poetic title to the one that I'm forgetting, and here I go again. I meant to look that up, and I instead I was collecting what books I could find. They're right over here, so it's easy for me to get them. But okay, so it's Bernard Fall, another French guy, and then if you want to read fiction, I've mentioned this I think in my top history books. It's a novel by Jean Lartegue. I believe that's a Basque name, but it's called The Centurions, and he wrote one called The Praetorians, which is about the where is that Horn, where is he? Alistair Horn. I had that in my hand for hold on. So I'm just going to go right up here. I'll keep this book here for you to look at. I accidentally reshelved it. I found it and reshelved it. It's Alistair Horn, Horne, and it's about the liberation of Algeria from France. It's got a nice title, if I recall. Son of a bitch! I can't find it, and I had it right here, and I thought, okay, I gotta show this one. That's typical of this booktube. That kind of shit happens all the time. Well, I'll show you this one again. And what's notable about this one is that it starts with the fall of Dien Bien Phu. And it's fiction, but it's fiction written so well that you get a really great feel for what happened at Dien Bien Phu. And if you're really interested, and this is the thing about it, how interested are you? You really want to study about the Vietnam War? There's great stuff to read. Start with Tragedy of American Diplomacy, and then go to the French journalists. If you Jean something, really, I swear, and Bernard Fall. And there are 3 books total, 2 by one by the other. I can't remember, but something about night and dusk or something. I wonder if that's it. Up there? Up here? No. No, it looks like I'm just not going to find it. It's going to bother me, though. I might be back. So if you want to read that. Another one, I have, and this is, not something I don't feel bad about blowing my own horn, but I've not had a bad review yet of this book. The Manifold Destiny of Eddie Vegas. But there are some really good Dien Bien Phu war scenes here, and the one with the maggots is my favorite. And so, you'd have to just find the chapters, I suppose, if you don't want to read the whole book. And I wonder how hard it would be to do that. I don't know. I think just read the whole thing. But the 2 or 3 stories told by my little fella in this book are very good Vietnam stories, and very much based on research. And I think you get the real sense of place. And the Dien Bien Phu one with all the maggots is my personal favorite. I mean, one of those things you write and you think, God, I really love that I got that in there. Because there were a lot of maggots. A lot of dead bodies, a lot of water, a lot of rain, and, corpses, maggots, and, the rats of the Nam Myung, yeah, the river up there. Anyway, so that's if you want to get to the early part, if you just want to go, and maintain a little bit of a fictional scope, you have The Quiet American by Graham Greene, and that takes you to takes you back a year or two, from probably a year from Dien Bien Phu, because in 1953, that's when the CIA first went in, and this is about a CIA guy, The Quiet American, and it's a really good book, and I think historically important, though not as dramatic as this one. And this one, by the way, once they get out, the paratroopers, it's the French paratroopers, like Foreign Legion types. Once they get out of Vietnam, it's right to Algeria. So, if you want to get to war in the 20th century, you could just combine those two and you really get a lot. You'll understand a lot about war in the 20th century and about the United States. And because it's really not, Vietnam is not really history in the sense that the independence of Algeria is, because Algeria is independent. The connection is now that you have a lot of Algerians in France, and hard feelings and fucked up economics and so on. But in terms of the war in Vietnam, the template is still operating, and it's only fine tuning itself. It's improving its performance, and I don't think the fact that the U.S. left Afghanistan means that they're not performing anymore. I think they were there 20 years. Imagine what they got out of it. They were unable to do everything they wanted in Iraq, but they managed to make a lot of money for a lot of people, and to keep bases all over the area. So in terms of U.S. goals, it went pretty well. So I'm up to The Quiet American. So then, all right, if you want to just read about the Vietnam War, nice history, here's a student of William Appleman Williams. I don't know if he was a direct student or just one of the descendants from the University of Wisconsin, Gabriel Kolko. And this is his Vietnam book, Anatomy of War, 1940 to 1975. I think that this is, I guess I didn't read the sources and notes. My bookmark was on the last page of the book. So it's a 558 book. I don't think you'll find a better one in terms of a summary. But what you will find out is that historians know more as documents are released and other people send reporters dig into different areas and historians dig into different areas. And so you find out such things as the My Lai massacre, which happened, I believe, in 1968. And I don't know if Hirsch wrote a book about it or if somebody else. I'm sure a book has been written about it, probably more than one. But it happened in 1968, and Seymour Hirsch made his name by writing about it. Well, then you find out, I found this out just by reading here and there, that now it's known that the U.S. was engaged in a systemic policy of massacre, and there were times where there was virtually a My Lai a day. And so to catch up on that, I ordered this book, because I've heard that Nick Turse is a good historian. There was a book after his that was, he was being interviewed, and I saw it, and I was convinced, okay, I should read this guy. I'd heard about this book, and this is basically about that systemic process, kill anything that moves, the real American war in Vietnam. Well, this basically is just telling you that as bad as you might have thought it was worse. You can also read things about another specialty, if you want to go deeply into the war, would be to read about the weapons that were developed there or that were refined there. I mean, napalm was made famous by its use in Vietnam, but it was used against Greek resistance fighters in the 40s by the United States. And I believe it was used in, Korea, of course. Korea, yeah. So I think that summarizes the Vietnam in only 17 minutes. So Korea, Bruce Cummings, 1M, I think. And I may have talked about him before, but he's the guy on North Korea. And I recommend, he's got a 2-volume book. I recommend that you get his 1-volume book on the war in Korea, unless you're really dedicated and really want to know a lot. I read, I don't remember how much I read of, I didn't finish it. I don't know if I even got into volume 2. I don't have the books anymore. Maybe I never had them. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe I was reading the library version. But I remember it was fascinating. But they're 2 big fat books, and so highly recommended. But if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to dedicate yourself, devote half a year or whatever it takes to read 2 fat, dense history books, then you really owe it to yourself, if you're from the United States, to read about what really happened in Korea. And I can tell you a little bit about it, but I don't remember enough to be specific. But basically, the United States was propping up wealthy appeasers, people who sided with the Japanese, and I think Cummings would make the point that Bruce is his first name. You'll find it. Cuming, probably S, probably, and you'll find out that it was. He's very persuasive in arguing that it was a civil war, war of independence and civil war. But among the Koreans, it should not. No, there was no reason for it to be an international battle, there to be a Cold War defining moment. So that's what you get by reading that. So I guess you see my point is that if you want to know about, what the best history books are, well, decide first what you're interested in. Like, for instance, I just if your interest is Stalin, 50 years ago, I think you'd have been told the biography by, God Christ, another name lost. So and so was the best, but now, I was looking up there where I mislaid the Alistair Horn book on the, the Algerian War of Independence. I got a name for a character in this book from a town that is key to that book and that war. Sétif is the town. It sounded like a good name for a woman. Anyway, so she's a character in here, and anyway, that's a discursive note. And now, the kind of thing that makes you drown when you think you're dog pedaling, as I did. Now I'm drowning because I can't remember what the fuck I was going to say about that. I looked at a row of Stalin books, Young Stalin, and, a bunch of books on Stalin. I think I was studying Stalin with the intent to write some fiction that might have something to do with Russia. I don't remember. I don't know if I ever wrote it. But anyway, I scanned them with this video in mind. So this is another way to tell, what is a great history book? What's the one where you're scanning your history books, like if I had my books by subject and region, my history books. Well, I would go through all those Russian ones, and none of them stood out. So none of those would be recommended. I guess I recommend you find out what the best one might be. So anyway, and then there are these topics. Vietnam is one. I think that if you're going to read one book on Vietnam, you need to read two. You should read two. You should read William Appleman Williams and The Tragedy of American Diplomacy, because that'll get you through the rest of your books. Eduardo Galeano, his trilogy on Latin American, on world history, but basically Latin American is the focus. Latin America, U.S. Bullshit. Some beautiful stuff, beautiful writing, but really to the point. It's a lyrical, virtually episodic, not even episodic, almost aphoristic, but these little tiny paragraphs, sometimes a half a page, and 3 volumes of that. And so that, I don't want to forget to mention Eduardo Galeano. But there's some, the point I want to make is, if you want to read, if you want to know about about Gaza, I would say it's easier to say what you shouldn't skip than it is what you should read. Unless that's saying the same thing, and I'm no longer capable of making such fine distinctions. But Norman Finkelstein is brilliant on the internationally legalistic fine points of atrocities in Gaza. This predates the current war, which makes it a weird read, but it's important to understand because someone like Finkelstein wouldn't, he knows that, all the bullshit about the the peace treaties are untrue, and it's important to debunk this myth that the Palestinians have been offered many fine, generous peace treaties. It's ahistorical, in the first place. Since when did the invading and occupying force become the high gain the moral high ground where from they bestow a peace treaty, so it doesn't make sense anyway. But someone like Finkelstein will give you details that you won't get anywhere else. But my knowledge of I think I probably learned more about this from Chomsky than anyone else, except now, if you want to read the Balkans, if you want to read about the Balkans from 1453 to about 30 years ago, L.S. Stavrianos was a great historian of the sweeping history type. This is it's over 800 pages, and I've had it for a long time, and he wrote another book called Global Rift, which is about, I don't know, a few centuries of colonialism and post-colonialism. And I got a lot about Gaza. I once had to give a lecture to an English class that it was English for historians and for history students. And I once had to give them a lecture, and I designed the lecture based on Stavrianos's writings in Global Rift about the white settler regime of. He wrote about white settler regime, so he coupled South Africa with. You see this weird hair here? I'm looking at it, and just because of the lighting, it looks like a special hair, and I really don't want to lose it. Here it is. I really don't want to lose it. Let's see. I can cut it off as a gift for watching this far. Yeah, that one's for you. Why things like that bother a person, I don't know. Anyway, you don't get a lot of photos here, but you get a lot of bookmarks. That's Isla. That's where we are. Saver Guitars is, let's see. I guess, yeah. You just have to go a little bit further this way, and in a couple of blocks, maybe. Take one of these streets here and to the main street, and it's pretty close. It's not far. It's a plane ticket. Paris, Venezia, Mestre. It's a friend's ticket. When did I go to Paris? I'd have told you. This is from a church in Piran, the town where James Joyce had his drinking fuck up. And this is I guess that's an Indian chameleon, because I think it's an Indian postcard. This came with a Seshu Foster book. Anyway, L.S. Stavrianos' Global Rift would be a good place to start on the Zionist invasion. But, I think you'd have to find something as well. I think the period from the Balfour Declaration to the suppression of the 1930s Palestinian rebellion, 1936 to 39 are the main years there. That probably has several books on it, and one of those is essential. And I only have books that I think are. I have a couple good ones laying around somewhere, but this is the only one that I found immediately that I think is extremely important and should be read, Finkelstein's. But I also was going to say that I think I learned most of what I know from Chomsky, interviews and articles over the years, because it was the first historical uh, um, dispute, let's say, that caught my attention. I think I was in high school and I saw the title of a book. It might have been by Chomsky, I don't know, but it was definitely pro-Palestinian, and there was something about it just captured me, and so I've been reading about it ever since. I wish I had that book. You know. Anyway, so that's my lesson today. Is that there are. It depends on the topic. If you want to read about Latin American history, Galeano is a good person to read. But if you're interested in Argentinian history, well, there's probably one great historian, at least from Argentina, and if you can find that one in English, then that'd be a good start. If you don't know about Rodolfo Walsh, then reading about Rodolfo Walsh would be a good start. But anyway, you'll find plenty of good historical fiction in Latin America. So anyway, I think that's enough. I think you've had enough. I think I've had enough. And if you haven't had enough, something's probably wrong with you. Thanks. Remember, Saver Guitars. He's a luthier. He'll make you a guitar to your specs.